Ladies and gentlemen, the global events industry represents over 26 million professionals, builds community and drives innovation, workforce development, and education. It is vital that we include this industry in our discussions for travel and tourism recovery. You know, you've been following me, some of you, that we are conducting at World Tourism Forum Institute these town halls focused on the wider travel and tourism industry and their recovery strategies. But it's really important that this particular meetings industry, it plays a pivotal role in the world's economic recovery from COVID-19. So for that purpose, I'm very pleased to introduce today my guest, Mr. David Peckinpaugh. He is the president of Maritz Global Events. David, welcome to our platform.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you asking.
Yeah. David, you know, we are living through very, very unprecedented times at the moment, okay? And by some estimates, I've been just looking at some numbers, you know, in this particular industry, the meetings industry, it's about 1.5 billion people worldwide participate in the business events annually. 2.5 trillion USD in direct and indirect spending as a result of business events is going into the global economy. 1.5 trillion USD in global GDP in contribution. 26 million people have direct or indirect jobs in this industry. Just in 704,000 USD average spending by business events participants. So this is a huge, huge spectrum of this industry. And I just felt that your organization is set right in the middle of it. And if you can give us a sense that where we are in this entire crisis, you know, and what do you think the future holds?
Yeah, that's a big question. Let me maybe a little background about our company, just so everyone knows. Maritz overall is a 125-year-old company. We just celebrated that last fall. Wow. The company I'm part of, Maritz Global Events, that I'm responsible for, is one of several Maritz businesses, you know, located here in St. Louis, Missouri, and our business is actually dates back to 1958. We serve all markets, the corporate market, and everything within that corporate market, from channel conferences, sales meeting, user groups to incentives. Our really sort of bread and butter has been built on incentives over the decades. We also serve the association market, the trade show, for-profit trade show market, and then what we call the live events market. Live events is anything from ultra marathons to Comic-Cons, VidCons to online gaming. So we've got a unique perspective of that we really cross all markets and across the industry. As far as, you know, the current state, obviously there's probably not a sector of the hospitality industry that's more directly impacted than meetings and events, the MICE market, if you will, from a global terminology perspective. Our company obviously has been hit square with that. When early in March, when the ban on gatherings happened, it was originally 50 people and then went down to 10 people or more. That pretty much shut down the meetings industry for a period of time. The big question is, what's that period of time? And that's the $1 million question right now. And I've been saying our crystal ball is made of stained glass, right? There's moments of clarity, there's moments of color and moments of darkness. And we certainly feel like we've gone through the worst of it now. And we're starting to see signs of recovery. I think the question is, what is that timeline? And I think the answer from my perspective is there is no one date, there's no one month, there's no one specific period. It's going to come back in fits and starts and bits and pieces. And I think that's just one of the frustrations and the realities that we're going to deal with over the next 6 to 12 months.
So have you seen a surge towards, how are your clients? What's the sense that you are getting from the clients? Are they going, everybody seems to be in the Zoom, doom, gloom world today, you know, and everybody's jumping online. What is Maritz Readiness to cope with that? You know, how much do you want clients to go online? You know, this is because our industry is all about face-to-face human connection. how much do we want to support and push them in that direction? Is that pushing some business away? So
Yeah.
give me a sense
So I think,
of
our
Maritz's
perspective,
approach.
I think our perspective is, look, I and our company are absolutely based and founded in face-to-face events. And I think the one thing, while yes, we have this virtual component that is alive and well and dominating right now, I think it also has proven that this, our saying is it's filling the gap, but it's not filling the void. And I think that's a real truth and reality. Human behavior, if you study that, and we have a big behavioral sciences practice in our business, people want to gather. They want to meet face to face. This going screen to screen, it suffices, but it is not a replacement. So we're definitely of the belief that face to face is here to stay. It's temporarily being impacted, just like it was in 08, 09, or Gulf War, or you can go back crisis after crisis. And as an industry, we're going to adapt, and we're going to adopt new practices, new protocols, but we're going to get back to it. So our point of view is, in the near to midterm, virtual digital events are absolutely going to be front and center. But longer term, that aspect of the meeting, the hybrid meeting, whatever you want to label it, is going to be a part of our reality moving forward, and we have no doubt about that. But I'm not ready to give up on face-to-face at all, and that's not what we're seeing from our clients. We're seeing that short-term impact, the focus on digital events, but then a longer-term complete upsurge and focus on getting back face-to-face, and that's across all of our market segments, including incentive, which typically, while it can be domestic, typically involves long-haul flights, and that's a huge aspect of recovery is the airline industry. Right. So it's a mixed bag, but we as a company, we pivoted immediately in February when we saw this occurring, and we switched our face-to-face design practice to focus on digital design, and that's been very successful. We are helping our numerous clients through that transition as they try to figure out, what does a digital event look like, and how do you develop and design and execute a meaningful experience that, again, will help fill the gap, but ultimately not fill the void.
Right. So, everybody's been on that wave, right? On that going digital wave. Somebody's done it very successfully. Some organizations have done it successfully. Some has really produced very shoddy results, and you see that. You can tell the difference. Our organization is just one of the many who have to, get into that space very fast and very quickly. So, do you think this practice is here to stay now with us?
Yeah, I definitely think, as I mentioned, that it's, and I'll just use the term hybrid for right now, for lack of a better term, that hybrid component where it's going to be a part of the mix, but it's not going to be the mix. Face-to-face is still going to be the foundation, I think, longer term. But digital is certainly going to be part of that mix. And so our focus is, how do we take our design methodology and apply that to the digital event? And I think that's a mistake a lot of organizations have tried to do. They've tried to take what they know about face-to-face and just pivot and apply it immediately to digital, and that does not work. This is a different medium. How you interact, how you engage, how you deliver that experience has to be done through design. It can't be ad hoc. It can't be seat of the pants kind of approach. That really needs to be designed and planned for, and that's what our focus is with our clients. And
that's a very profound point you have made, that a lot of organizations are taking their on-ground face-to-face models and trying to fit those into the digital or hybrid models. And that's where I think the disconnect is, because this is a completely different medium, the way you engage, and it's different. So coming back to your industry, the community, I would say, so the airlines, the hotels, your partners, where do you think they are in that state of readiness to support you through this process? Because you, as a meeting planner, alone cannot do that, and it's everybody who has a symbiotic link has to come together here. And where do you feel we are?
I think in that recovery path, and I was having this discussion with a hotel executive this morning. I think it's creating the sense and the environment of health and safety. And I think the reason I use the word sense is I think there's a difference between belief and sense versus actuality, if you will. Because if you go back studying all kinds of different issues that are related to this, we all traveled after 9/11, right? Where there's huge security concerns.
Absolutely.
But TSA and the practices we adopted gave us that sense of security and safety. I think we're in the same ball game right now, right? We have to create that sense of safety and security. I'll start with the front end of the engine, which is the airlines, right? I sit on virtually every airline update call every week. Airlines are critical to our business, and I've been really impressed overall with the approach the airlines have taken. I flew just 2 weeks ago, my first time since early March. And honestly, I felt safer on the airplane than I did going to the grocery store locally.
So these are your domestic. So this is really, really important because the world is looking towards US at the moment, right? They are how the US is opening, how the industry is ramping up, and there's a lot of distorted information by the media. So can you cut through that noise for us? Myself personally, I'm clueless. I'm in Toronto, but I'm clueless what's happening in US in terms of airlines,
we try to, as much as we can, focus on the data. And when you and I were talking prior to the call, one of the factors is there's such confusing data that's out there. So we're trying to rely on a couple of main sources, the World Health Organization, the CDC, and then our own data. We're a significant buyer of hotel rooms in the industry. We're over 4.5 million room nights a year. So we're a pretty good indicator of what's going on and what customer behavior looks like. We're also partners with Cvent, right? They're the biggest online booking engine in our meeting space. And so we've tied in and are connected to their data. And so we get to see what they're seeing through their massive channel. Yeah. And so that, as well as TSA statistics and then direct airline ticketing statistics, are the main sources that we rely on. Some polling, PCMA, MPI, ASE all have polling that's available, but it's more sentiment driven versus hard data. And what we're seeing right now are signs of recovery. TSA visitation is up week over week for the last month. Airlines are now seeing a spike in airline travel here domestically, and I'll get to the long haul international component in a minute. Hotels are now announcing reopenings, and both airlines, hotels, and airports are releasing their new health and safety protocols. And again, to me, that all ties into this sense of safety and security and health. The big issue for me all along is there's only so many drive markets, if you will, for meetings and events. And so we have to get the airlines healthy. That's going to be critical to our recovery. I'm encouraged with the practices they put in place with HIPAA filters and cleaning and fogging. As I mentioned, I traveled 2 weeks ago and felt completely secure, wore my mask. Everyone was wearing masks. And I think that's the reality for the near to midterm, certainly for travel.
Do you see the middle seat going away?
Yeah, the middle seat, at least currently, has gone away.
Has it really, David? Because we've had
unless you're a family that has been quarantined and together. Where I saw some of those where the middle seats were filled. Otherwise, like on Southwest, who I flew, the first 3 rows were closed, the last 3 rows were closed. That was, I think, to protect the flight attendants. Right. And then the middle seats were not occupied. And the boarding process, they did it at 10 people at a time with proper spacing and distance. And I felt fine and had no consequences. That was over 2 weeks ago. Okay. And I have additional trips coming up in the months of June, July, and August. So I'm one that's bullish and with the right
news. This is really, really big news, for the international audience, because there is so much confusion right now, for what your media is presenting. It's horrific, because
it is, and then the problem with the news cycle and the media is what sells is drama. What sells is crisis. Yeah. And, and you could always say they're focused on the mortality rate versus focusing on the recovery rate. And, that's all perspective taking. There's no doubt that international travel is going to be affected for quite some time. just the airlines themselves have reduced capacity to such a great extent that we see that recovering probably Q2 and Q3 of 2021. And I think that's probably the earliest that's real. I mean, there's going to be some service for sure, but any kind of true lift in capacity is going to be a little bit to come back. I think domestically, we see that recovery happening over the summer. So month by month, week by week, capacity being added back in and travel. You know, I've talked to a lot of my hotel industry friends, you know, regularly. Last weekend was a holiday in the United States. Many resorts that were dry markets, they were totally sold out. So there's a demand for travel. There's a demand to get back and have those experiences. As a meetings industry, we just have to make sure that we can provide that sense of safety and security and health to the guest attendee, where they say on the scale of risk, okay, I'm willing to take that risk. And look, we take that risk every day. We take that risk getting in a car. We take that risk getting on a plane, going to a doctor. I mean, every single thing we do in our life is a risk reward scenario. And so we just have to tilt the scales in our
the two. And so moving away from the airlines, I just want to very quickly touch on the hotels. You know, so all the major brands are coming up with their own hygiene and cleanliness standards, and you know, the US brands, the European brands, and there's much talk about this thing that products like Airbnb, you know, will become less popular because it's the bigger brands who have the bandwidth and the resources, you know, to invest in these new hygiene standards, because it is an investment, right? It means you know, your cost is going up of operations, you know, and so it's an investment that they can afford to make. And products like Airbnb, you know, will have to reevaluate how they go to the consumers, and because the consumer behavior is being impacted. So that's my one question on the hotels. My second question is that these standards which are coming out right now, is US going to come up with its own, the US travel and tourism industry needs its own standards, insignia, or a process like SG Clean, even kind of small countries like Azerbaijan. Yesterday I was talking to the minister there, and they've come up with their own brand. And you've got big companies like PwC driving those and implementing those processes, you know. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so let me start on the hotel side, because I think the hotels have made great strides. I think what your experience, again, in the short and midterm, I'm not sure I mean, it'll always be part of the mix, but probably not to the extent it will be in the short and midterm, is touchless a hotel experience, right? You'll register, you'll do everything on your device. You'll register, you get your room key, you'll go to the room, it'll be have a safety seal on it, and housekeeping will be at your discretion. I think that's going to be the reality during the stays in the mid to short term. So I think that's going to, again, provide that sense of health and safety. I think if you look at how that will expand and continue, you know, it's just going to be a logical expansion as we all adapt and adopt to those practices. Can you repeat the second part of your question for me?
So my second part is that today, a lot of countries, Singapore was one of the first ones to come up with its own insignia for hygiene, SG Clean.
Yeah, so as far as safety and standards, I think for the industry, I would look to two organizations that are taking the lead. You have American Hotel Lodging Association, AHLA, that's really creating I think the overall underwriting standards for the lodging industry. The other one is the EIC, the Events Industry Council, has kicked off their Apex initiative. We're very engaged in that and supportive of that. And to me, that's really important, because I think as an industry, we have to create those standards and best practices so that it's not handed down or forced on us by governments, let's say. So I'm really encouraged with the work that the EIC is doing. I think between AHLA and EIC, that will give us the foundation of best practices and protocols moving forward. And then the last thing I would say is, you know, we're very supportive of a number of initiatives for advocacy. The U.S. Travel Association is very active
Yeah.
on the Hill, really representing our industry from all aspects, not just the hospitality, lodging industry or the cruise industry, but the meetings industry in particular. And you can see a lot of the impact that their efforts have had on the CARES Act, on other safety nets that have been provided for the industry. I'm a big follower and supporter and actually co-creator of the Meetings Mean Business Coalition, and that coalition has been around since 2012, made up of most of the key industry players, and is really about defending the value of face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
And then a newer coalition that was formed really more around the exhibition and trade show spaces go live together. And that is a number of organizations came together to create that, to again advocate on the Hill and with our government around the power of face-to-face events. And you've seen success in China and Germany and other areas where they've been able to carve out the trade show and business events from being lumped into big gatherings, like stadiums and concerts and venues like that. And that's really critically important because we do have the ability to control that environment much more so than other mass gatherings. And I think if governments realize we need to be carved out, that will help in our recovery as well.
Fantastic. And what is the sentiment of your people, of your staff? How are you moving as a leader? That's I'm speaking to you, David. As a leader, where do you feel that how you're supporting and with your leadership? What's the role that you are having to play, which is unprecedented?
Yeah, I think my approach has been balance. What I've tried to do, and I have a all company call every Friday, and we have a pulse survey that goes out continuously every day. And so what I try to do is use that call as an opportunity to answer questions, also address broader issues. And so for me, I've tried to have a balance between good news and bad news, right? I don't want to be Pollyannish and try to paint that everything's rosy. I also don't want to be a complete negative Nelly and try to make everyone depressed, right? It's really important to have that balance. What I'm doing tomorrow in the next call is really starting more about the conversation around recovery. Up to this point, it's been more about what are we doing and how are we reacting, how are we taking care of our customers. Now it's going to be a little more focused on what does that recovery look like. And what I keep telling everyone is we can't afford, I call it a bunker mentality, right? When you're at war, which we are in some ways, there's a tendency to jump in that bunker, keep your head down, and to focus only on the day-to-day issues of the business. My job in running this business is to not only do that, but then to have my head up, looking through the windshield, if you will, if you're using that analogy, not in the rearview mirror, but looking forward and saying, how do we position our company for success as recovery begins, right? We're not going to be the same company coming out of this as we were going into it, right? We'll have to rescale, we'll have to retool some of our solutions. I've already talked about how we've changed our design practice. We will look differently, but we are and will continue to be focused on what we need to be when we come out of this. And to me, having that balance of reality of day to day, but focusing on the vision of the future, I think has been helpful for our people because it's very easy to get sort of caught up in that negative swirl of conversation and social media and media in general. And part of my job is to make sure that, okay, that's a reality, but let's really concentrate on now what the future is going to look like.
Absolutely. So on that note, because I feel that out of every crisis, there's always a silver lining. And I think the silver lining here is, David, you've made some really, really profound points here, that you are going to come out of this crisis better, smarter, I think more vigilant as an industry. And it's also a time that I'm getting a sense from you that you almost like Maritz could be that company in that organization, which is a bit of a trailblazer, because all the smaller meeting planners are looking up at you and for some pathway of getting out of this crisis. So you've got it together and you've got an honest and leadership there. That is very, very important as well. But I want to end on this note that we are living in a global village today, and organizations like yours need to come out, speak more, so that others can learn from. Just like the vaccine has to be shared, your knowledge has to be shared as well, to come out of this crisis. So thank you very much, David, for being part of this platform.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.